The thunder outside matched the pounding in my chest. Rain slashed against the windows of the downtown pharmacy, where I'd ducked in to escape both the sudden downpour and the man I was certain had been following me for the past 3 blocks. My fingers trembled as I pretended to browse through cold medicines, stealing glances toward the entrance where sheets of rain obscured the view of the street. Just paranoia, I whispered to myself, though the weight of the past 3 months, eviction notice, dead-end waitressing job, and my daughter Emma's mounting medical bills had left my nerves raw and exposed. Single motherhood at 25 wasn't what I had planned, especially not after Ryan cleaned out our shared account and disappeared the moment Emma's diagnosis came through. The pharmacy's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everyone in a sickly pallor that matched how I felt inside. My worn sneakers squeaked against the linoleum as I moved deeper into the store, putting distance between myself and the front door. The scent of antiseptic and cheap perfume samples hung in the air, making my empty stomach clench. That's when I saw him again. The same broad-shouldered silhouette through the rain-streaked glass of the pharmacy door. He wore a dark coat, his features indistinct except for his size, and the unmistakable intent in his stance. He was watching the store, watching me. My heart hammered against my ribs. The logical part of my brain said it couldn't be one of Ryan's gambling associates. They wouldn't waste time hunting down his ex for debts I knew nothing about. But logic was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not with Emma waiting at my neighbor's apartment. Not when I had exactly $27 to last until next payday. The bell above the door chimed, and I ducked behind a display of vitamins, peering through the gaps between bottles, but it wasn't my stalker. Just an elderly woman shaking rain from her umbrella. My relief was short-lived as the door opened again almost immediately. This time, the energy in the store shifted. I felt it before I saw anything, like a drop in barometric pressure before a storm. The fluorescent lights seemed to dim, or perhaps it was just that they were suddenly inadequate against the presence that entered. I glimpsed him in fragments, Italian leather shoes, immaculate despite the downpour. A tailored charcoal suit beneath a long black coat. Broad shoulders that tapered to a lean waist. I couldn't see his face, but I registered the immediate deference of the security guard who had been watching me suspiciously just moments before. Behind him, like shadows given human form, 2 men in dark suits entered. Their eyes scanned the store with mechanical precision, noting exits, other customers, potential threats. One stationed himself near the door, the other drifted to the opposite corner. Neither spoke. Something primal in me recognized danger. This wasn't the desperate, unpredictable threat of Ryan's associates. This was something calculated, contained, and infinitely more dangerous. I shrank further behind the display, knocking a bottle of calcium supplements to the floor with a clatter that seemed to echo through the suddenly quiet store. The sound drew his attention. For a brief, terrible moment, dark eyes locked with mine across the distance. Eyes so black they seemed to absorb the harsh lighting rather than reflect it. A face carved from stone, high cheekbones, a straight nose, lips pressed into a grim line. He couldn't have been more than 35, but authority radiated from him like heat. He turned away, dismissing me as quickly as he'd noticed me, moving toward the pharmacy counter at the back. His voice, when he spoke to the pharmacist, was too low to hear, but I watched the man behind the counter pale, nodding frantically before disappearing into the back room. My stalker was forgotten. This new presence filled my senses with warning signals I couldn't ignore. I needed to leave. Now. I abandoned my half-filled basket, edging toward the exit where rain continued to lash against the glass doors. The guard by the door tracked my movement with cold eyes but made no move to stop me. 3 steps from freedom, the pharmacy door burst open. The man I'd been avoiding, stubble-faced, wild-eyed, with a jagged scar running along his jawline, stood in the entrance, water dripping from his leather jacket. His gaze found me instantly. "There you are, Ryan's little bitch," he snarled, advancing with purpose. Time to pay up what he owes. Terror washed through me like ice water. The few customers in the store froze, the elderly woman clutching her purse to her chest, a young mother pulling her child behind her. No one moved to help. No one ever did. "I don't have anything," I said, hating the tremor in my voice. "Ryan's been gone for months. I don't know where he is. Not my problem," he said, reaching inside his jacket. The glint of metal sent adrenaline surging through my veins. I didn't think, just reacted. Spinning around, I lunged toward the only source of protection my instincts could identify. My fingers closed desperately around a solid forearm, my body automatically angling itself behind the owner of that arm, the man in the tailored suit who had somehow, silently, materialized near the front of the store. Time stopped. The world condensed to sensory fragments. The expensive wool of his suit against my cheek, a scent of sandalwood and something darker beneath, the absolute stillness of the body I clung to. Beneath my fingers, I felt muscles like steel cables, motionless but thrumming with potential energy. Slowly, I raised my eyes. The man whose arm I had grabbed stared down at me with an expression of such cold surprise that my breath caught. Up close, his features were even more striking, devastatingly handsome in a severe, almost cruel way. A thin white scar traced his right eyebrow, disappearing into his hairline. His black hair was cut short and precise, graying slightly at the temples, but it was his eyes that trapped me. Obsidian dark, intelligent, and utterly merciless. They assessed me in a fraction of a second, like a predator categorizing potential prey. Behind me, I heard my stalker's footsteps falter. "Mr. Castellano," he stammered, his voice transformed from menace to terror in an instant. I wasn't. Antonio. The single word from the man I clung to cut through the air like a blade. His voice was deep, accented with Italian undertones that somehow made it more menacing. He hadn't moved, hadn't so much as tensed, yet the atmosphere crackled with lethal intent. I tried to pull away, suddenly aware that I'd thrown myself from one danger into something far worse. But his free hand came up to circle my wrist, holding me in place. His touch was gentle but unbreakable. "This woman," he continued, his gaze never leaving my face even as he addressed my stalker. "She is known to you. She's nobody," the man, Antonio, babbled. "Just the ex of some gambler who owes me money. A misunderstanding. I'll go. You followed her." It wasn't a question. I didn't know she was... I wouldn't have if I'd known she was yours. "She isn't mine." The words were soft, contemplative, at odds with the calculating assessment in his eyes. Yet. A shudder ran through me. Fear, yes, but something else too. Something I refused to acknowledge. I found my voice at last. "I'm not anyone's," I said, trying to tug my wrist free. "And I don't know either of you. Please, I just want to go home to my daughter." Something flickered in those black eyes. A flash of interest, quickly concealed. "A daughter," he repeated, as if testing the word. His gaze swept over me again, taking in my worn jeans, the waitress uniform partially visible beneath my cheap raincoat, the shadows of exhaustion under my eyes. "How old?" The question was so unexpected that I answered without thinking. 6. "She's waiting for me. Please, 6, he echoed. His thumb brushed over my pulse point, so lightly it might have been unintentional. "And her father?" "Gone," I said flatly. Something dangerous passed over his features. Without looking away from me, he addressed Antonio again, "The man who owes you money, his name." "Ryan Dawson," Antonio replied immediately. "Small time. Into me for 30 grand. Been dodging for months." Mr. Castellano's expression didn't change, but I sensed a decision being made behind those impenetrable eyes. "Consider the debt transferred," he said. "You'll be compensated. Now leave." Antonio didn't hesitate. He backed toward the door, nearly stumbling in his haste. "Of course, Mr. Castellano. Thank you, sir. I'm sorry for the... If I see you near this woman again, there won't be enough of you left to apologize." The tone was conversational, almost pleasant, which made the threat all the more chilling. The pharmacy door banged shut behind Antonio's retreating figure. Only then did Castellano release my wrist, though he made no move to step away. "You should be more careful about the men you associate with," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "I didn't associate with him," I protested. "And I didn't ask for your help." A ghost of a smile touched his lips, gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "No, you grabbed me. Most people know better." Heat rushed to my face. I'm sorry. I was scared. I should go. What's your name? He cut in. I hesitated, every instinct screaming that giving this man any information about myself would be a mistake. But he'd already intervened with Antonio, already knew about Emma. Sophia, I said finally. Sophia Reed. Sophia, he repeated, and somehow the sound of my name in his mouth felt like a claim. I'm Dante Castellano. The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it, as if I should recognize it, as if everyone should, told me everything I needed to know. Whoever Dante Castellano was, he was accustomed to power, to being feared. Thank you for your help, Mr. Castellano, I said carefully, taking a step back. I should really get home to my daughter. He studied me for another long moment. One of his men approached, murmuring something in his ear. Castellano nodded once, his eyes never leaving mine. My driver will take you home, he said, in a tone that brooked no argument. That's not necessary. It's raining, it's late, and the man who just left might have friends. He interrupted. The car will take you home. Before I could protest further, his hand moved to the small of my back, guiding me toward the door with a light pressure that somehow made it impossible to resist. Outside, a sleek black Bentley idled at the curb, a mountain of a man holding an umbrella at attention beside it. Marco will see you safely home, Dante said, nodding toward the driver. And Sophia? He paused, his eyes holding mine one final time. We'll speak again soon. It wasn't a question, or even a suggestion. It was a certainty. I shivered, unable to tell if it was from the cold rain or from the promise in his voice. As the driver held the car door open for me, I glanced back at Dante Castellano, standing motionless in the doorway of the pharmacy, watching me with those unfathomable dark eyes. I couldn't have known then how prophetic his words would be, couldn't have imagined how completely Dante Castellano would infiltrate every aspect of my existence. Couldn't have guessed that the simple, desperate act of grabbing a stranger's arm would set in motion events that would irreversibly alter the course of my life, and Emma's. All I knew, as the luxurious car pulled away from the curb, was that I had escaped one danger only to entangle myself with something infinitely more powerful. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear and uncertainty, a treacherous part of me wondered if I had just met the man who could either save me or destroy me completely. The Bentley glided through rain-slicked streets like a phantom, the interior so silent I could hear my own uneven breathing. Streetlights streamed past in watery blurs, reflecting off polished leather seats that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. The driver, Marco, hadn't spoken a word since asking for my address in a voice thick with an accent I couldn't place. Just drop me at the corner, I said as we approached my neighborhood, where boarded storefronts and flickering streetlights marked the transition to a part of town men like Dante Castellano likely never saw. Embarrassment burned in my chest at the thought of this gleaming car idling in front of my rundown apartment building. Marco's eyes flicked to mine in the rearview mirror. Mr. Castellano's instructions were clear, door to door. Something in his tone made further argument seem unwise. I sank back against the seat, clutching my worn purse, wondering what Emma would think of this surreal scene. My practical, observant daughter, who already understood at 6 that we lived differently from the children whose mothers arrived at school in cars like this one. We pulled up to my building, and before I could reach for the handle, Marco was outside, umbrella unfurled, opening my door. Rain pattered against the black canopy as he escorted me to the entrance. I fumbled with my keys, acutely aware of his looming presence behind me. Thank you, I managed, once the door was unlocked. Marco nodded, his expression unreadable. Mr. Castellano will be in touch. He turned and walked back to the car, leaving me with a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. Mrs. Patel from apartment 3B was waiting with Emma, both of them curled up on a faded couch surrounded by the comforting sense of cardamom and ginger that always permeated the elderly woman's home. My daughter's eyes lit up when I appeared, her thin arms reaching for me with unrestrained joy that made my heart clench. Mommy, Mrs. Patel, let me help make samosas. Emma's dark curls bounced as she jumped up. Despite the shadows beneath her eyes, a permanent feature since her diagnosis, her smile could still illuminate the darkest corners of my world. I gathered her close, breathing in her familiar scent of baby shampoo and the cherry medicine she took daily. That sounds amazing, sweetheart. Did you save one for me? Later, after tucking Emma into bed in our one-bedroom apartment where she took the bedroom and I slept on a pull-out sofa, I stood at our small kitchen window, staring down at the street. The rain had stopped, but puddles reflected the glow of streetlights, creating islands of illumination in the darkness. I half expected to see the Bentley still there, or perhaps another car with dark windows and silent occupants. The street remained empty, yet I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Couldn't forget the weight of Dante Castellano's eyes on me, or the casual way he'd dismissed a $30,000 debt like it was pocket change. We'll speak again soon. Sleep evaded me that night, my mind replaying the events in the pharmacy in fragmented loops. I'd grown up in neighborhoods where you learn to recognize power and danger, to avoid certain blocks, certain people. But Castellano was something else entirely. His power wasn't loud or flashy. It ran deep and silent like an underground river, carrying with it the absolute certainty that anything in its path could be swept away without a trace. Morning came too quickly. I shuffled through our routine, Emma's medications, breakfast, the careful arrangement of her dark curls into neat pigtails, before walking her to school. The sky had cleared overnight, leaving behind a crisp autumn day that felt too bright after the shadows of the previous evening. "You're quiet today, Mommy," Emma observed, as her small hand clutched mine. Her perception had always been uncanny, as though her illness had granted her some sixth sense for the emotional undercurrents around her. I forced a smile. "Just tired, baby. Thinking about work." Her solemn brown eyes studied me with a wisdom beyond her years. "Is it about the money for my medicine? I heard you talking to Dr. Michaels." My heart contracted painfully. 6 years old, and already she worried about things no child should understand. "Don't you worry about that. That's my job, not yours, okay? Your job is to be the smartest kid in Ms. Wilson's class." That earned me a genuine smile as we reached the school gates. I kissed the top of her head, breathing in her scent one more time. "I love you, Em. Have a great day." "Love you more," she replied, our daily ritual, before skipping toward the entrance where other children gathered. I was halfway to the diner where I worked the morning shift when I noticed it. A sleek black car moving slowly along the curb beside me. Not the Bentley from last night, but similar, expensive, out of place in this neighborhood. My steps faltered as the rear window lowered with a soft electronic hum. "Ms. Reed." Dante Castellano's voice carried easily to the sidewalk, though he spoke quietly. "A moment of your time." It wasn't a request. I glanced at my watch. 20 minutes until my shift started, a 15-minute walk away. "I'll be late for work." That's been addressed. A chill ran through me. What does that mean? Instead of answering, he pushed open the car door. "Please." I hesitated, every instinct warning me not to get into a car with this man, but curiosity and something else, something I didn't want to examine too closely, propelled me forward. The interior was cool and dark, scented with leather, and that same sandalwood fragrance I'd noticed before. Castellano sat with casual elegance, one arm stretched along the back of the seat. In daylight, he was even more imposing, his features sharper, the authority in his bearing unmistakable. He wore another immaculate suit, this one navy blue, with a silver tie that caught the light when he moved. "You look tired, Sophia," he said, his dark eyes assessing me with unsettling intensity. "I didn't sleep well," I replied, then regretted the admission. It felt too intimate somehow. He nodded, as though this confirmed something. "Understandable, after your encounter yesterday." The car pulled smoothly away from the curb. I tensed. "Where are we going?" "I told you I have work." "As I said, it's been addressed. Your manager received a call explaining you'd be late." A pause, deliberate and heavy with implication. "In fact, you no longer work at the diner." Anger flashed through me, burning away some of my fear. "You had me fired? How dare you?" "No," he interrupted, his tone calm. "I purchased it." The words hung in the space between us, so absurd I was certain I'd misheard. "You..." "What?" "The establishment where you worked. I acquired it this morning." He stated this as casually as someone might mention buying a coffee. It seemed the most efficient solution. "Solution to what?" I demanded. my voice rising despite my best efforts to remain composed. There's no problem that needed solving, especially not by you. I don't even know you. His lips curved into the ghost of a smile. A situation I'm currently rectifying. The car turned onto a tree-lined avenue in a part of the city I rarely visited, where boutiques displayed clothes without price tags and restaurants had month-long waiting lists. My confusion deepened. Why? I asked finally. Why would you buy a diner? Why are you doing any of this? Castellano studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. You intrigue me, Sophia Reed, because I grabbed your arm? Because I have a daughter? There's nothing intriguing about me. I'm just trying to survive. Precisely, he said softly. Most people who encounter me are either seeking something or afraid. You were afraid, yes, but not of me, not initially. And you asked for nothing, even when opportunity presented itself. I frowned. What opportunity? The debt. $30,000 that is now technically owed to me. He watched me carefully. You didn't ask me to forgive it. It's not my debt, I said automatically. It's Ryan's. Your daughter's father. I nodded, unsure why we were discussing this. The man who abandoned you both when she became ill. Ice flooded my veins. How do you know that? Castellano made a dismissive gesture. Information is a commodity I trade in, Sophia. There's very little I cannot discover if I wish to. The car slowed, pulling up to a gleaming glass building. Through the windows, I glimpsed a marble lobby with a fountain at its center. Why am I here? I asked, as a valet opened the door. Breakfast, Castellano replied simply, following me out of the car. I find conversations flow more naturally over food. The restaurant on the building's top floor offered a panoramic view of the city that would have been breathtaking under other circumstances. The maitre d' greeted Castellano with a deference that bordered on fear, leading us to a secluded table by the windows without being asked. No menus appeared. Dishes simply materialized. Delicate pastries, fresh fruit, steaming coffee in bone china cups. Through it all, Castellano watched me with those penetrating dark eyes, asking questions about my life that seemed both innocuous and invasively personal. Where had I grown up? In foster care, bouncing between homes after my parents died in a car accident when I was 4. How had I met Ryan? Community college, where I'd been studying nursing before dropping out when I became pregnant. What was Emma's diagnosis? A rare blood disorder requiring expensive treatments and medications. Treatments you can barely afford, he noted, after I reluctantly explained our financial situation. We manage, I said stiffly, though the lie was transparent. The truth, that I was one missed paycheck away from disaster, that I'd been rationing Emma's non-critical medications to make them last longer, felt too raw to expose. And her father provides no support? I laughed bitterly. Ryan's idea of support was clearing out our bank account the day after her diagnosis. Last I heard, he was in Las Vegas. Castellano's expression darkened. A man who abandons his child forfeits the right to be called a father. Something in his tone made me look at him more closely. You sound like you speak from experience. A shadow crossed his features. My father was present, but not in ways that mattered. He changed the subject abruptly. Emma's medical expenses will be covered from now on. I froze, coffee cup halfway to my lips. Excuse me? Her treatments, medications, any specialists required, all arranged. No, I said firmly, setting down my cup with a sharp click. Absolutely not. His eyebrows rose slightly, a man unused to refusal. You would reject help for your daughter out of pride? Not pride. Self-preservation. I met his gaze directly. Nothing comes without a price, Mr. Castellano. Especially not from men like you. Men like me, he repeated, leaning forward slightly. And what kind of man do you think I am, Sophia? The question hung between us, dangerous and loaded. I knew, of course. The way Antonio had reacted, the deference of everyone around him, the casual display of wealth and power, it all pointed to one conclusion. But saying it aloud felt like crossing a line I couldn't retreat from. The kind who buys diners on a whim, I said instead. The kind who has people followed. The kind who inspires fear with just a look. I took a deep breath, the kind who expects something in return for his generosity. A flicker of something, amusement perhaps, or grudging respect, passed through his eyes. You assume I want something from you. Don't you? Yes, he admitted, his candor surprising me, but perhaps not what you imagine. Before I could ask what he meant, his phone vibrated. He checked it with a slight frown, then returned it to his pocket. Unfortunately, business calls. We'll continue this conversation another time. Relief and something like disappointment mingled in my chest as he signaled for the check, which never arrived, I noticed. Outside, his car waited, Marco materializing from somewhere to open the door. The car will take you wherever you wish to go, Castellano said. I can take the bus, I replied automatically. A smile touched his lips, the first genuine one I'd seen. Stubborn, he murmured, almost to himself. Very well. But first, he reached into his jacket and withdrew an envelope, holding it out to me. For Emma's immediate needs, I stared at the envelope without taking it. I told you. Consider it an advance, he interrupted. On your new position. My what? Your new employment. Since you no longer work at the diner, I've arranged something more suitable. My assistant will contact you with details. He pressed the envelope into my reluctant hands. This conversation isn't over, Sophia. It's barely begun. He turned and walked away, his movements graceful and controlled. Just before entering the building, he paused, looking back at me over his shoulder. Take care of your daughter. I'll be seeing you soon. It wasn't until I was on the bus, clutching the envelope, that I finally opened it. Inside was more cash than I'd ever held at once, enough to cover Emma's medications for months, to pay the overdue rent, to breathe just a little easier. And beneath the money, a business card with just a name and a phone number. Dante Castellano, a man who had, in the space of 24 hours, insinuated himself into my life with terrifying efficiency, a man I should run from as fast and far as possible. Instead, I slipped the card into my wallet, the weight of it burning against my fingertips like a promise or a threat. 3 days passed with no word from Dante Castellano. 3 days of jumping at shadows, of scanning every dark car that passed, of expecting that deep voice to materialize behind me at any moment. 3 days in which I told myself I was relieved by his absence, even as I found myself looking for him in crowded streets. The promised call about my new position came on Thursday morning, just after I'd walked Emma to school. A woman with a clipped, efficient voice identified herself as Catherine Hayes, executive assistant to Mr. Castellano. He's arranged a position for you at Mercy Children's Hospital, she informed me, as though this were the most ordinary thing in the world. In the administration department, the hours coincide with your daughter's school schedule. You'll start on Monday. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, my free hand gripping a lamppost for support. I don't understand. I'm not qualified for hospital administration. I never finished my nursing degree. Mr. Castellano believes otherwise. Her tone brooked no argument. A car will pick you up Monday morning at 7:30. Business attire is expected. She hung up before I could respond. I stared at my phone, torn between outrage at this high-handed arrangement of my life and a treacherous flicker of hope. Mercy Children's was the top pediatric hospital in the city, where Emma saw her specialists, where the treatments she needed were administered by doctors whose waiting lists stretched for months. And now, somehow, I would be working there, because Dante Castellano had decided it should be so. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation, using some of the money from the envelope to buy secondhand business clothes, arranging after-school care for Emma with Mrs. Patel, battling the voice in my head that warned I was stepping onto a path I couldn't easily leave. Monday morning arrived with a crystalline autumn chill. I dressed carefully in a navy pencil skirt and cream blouse, applying makeup with more attention than I had in years. Emma watched with curious eyes as I twisted my dark hair into a neat chignon. "You look pretty, Mommy," she said, perched on the edge of the bathtub in her school uniform. A concession I'd made to give her one normal thing despite our financial struggles. Like when you used to go to nursing school. I smiled, though my stomach churned with nerves. "Thank you, baby. Are you excited for your playdate with Lily after school?" She nodded, her thin face lighting up. "Will you be home for dinner?" Absolutely. I knelt to her level, straightening her collar. Nothing's going to change that, okay? This new job just means we won't have to worry so much about money, and I'll be working at the same hospital where Dr. Michaels takes care of you. Her smile faltered slightly. Will I still have to get the needle treatments? My heart contracted. Yes, sweetheart. But they're helping, remember? That's why you've been feeling stronger lately. I forced brightness into my voice. Now let's get you some breakfast before the car comes. A car? Like the big black one from last week? I stilled. You saw that? Emma nodded. From the window. Mrs. Patel said it was a rich person's car. She tilted her head, studying me with those perceptive eyes. Is the car from your new boss? I hesitated, unsure how to explain Dante Castellano's role in our lives, a role I didn't fully understand myself. Something like that, I said finally. Come on, serial time. The car that arrived, precisely at 7:30, wasn't the Bentley, but a more understated luxury sedan with tinted windows. The driver wasn't Marco, but a similarly built man who introduced himself only as Vince. He opened doors for us with military precision, his eyes constantly scanning our surroundings. After dropping Emma at school, we headed toward the gleaming towers of the medical district. My anxiety mounted with each passing block, questions tumbling through my mind. What exactly would this job entail? How much did Dante Castellano expect in return, and why? Why had he singled me out for this bizarre interest? The hospital's administrative wing was a maze of polished corridors and glass-walled offices. I was delivered to human resources, where a nervous-looking woman processed my paperwork with unusual speed. No one questioned my qualifications or experience. My title, Administrative Assistant to the Director of Pediatric Services, appeared on my new ID badge as though I'd earned it through conventional channels rather than the inexplicable whim of a man I was increasingly certain headed a criminal empire. By midday, I was settled at a desk outside Dr. Eleanor Chen's office, the formidable director who had welcomed me with barely concealed curiosity. Your references are impressive, she'd remarked, though I knew I'd provided none. And of course, any friend of the Castellano Foundation is welcome here. The Castellano Foundation. Throughout the morning, I'd heard the name mentioned with a mixture of respect and wariness. Apparently, they were major donors to the hospital, particularly the pediatric oncology and hematology departments, where Emma received her treatments. The coincidence was too precise to be accidental, another piece in the puzzle of Dante Castellano's interest that I couldn't quite fit into place. My new job was demanding but straightforward. Managing Dr. Chen's calendar, coordinating with department heads, processing paperwork for special cases. I took to it with surprising ease, grateful for work that engaged my mind rather than wearing down my body like the endless shifts at the diner. During my lunch break, I couldn't resist slipping down to the hematology department, where I introduced myself to the nurses who had been caring for Emma these past difficult months. Their attitudes shifted noticeably when they saw my badge, connections forming behind their eyes. So, you're working with Dr. Chen now, said Nurse Rivera, who had always been kind to Emma during her treatments. That's quite a step up from the diner. I swallowed. You knew I worked there? She smiled gently. You came directly from shift sometimes. Still wearing the uniform under your coat, she hesitated. I'm glad things are looking up for you and Emma. She's a special kid. Yes, she is, I agreed, my throat tight. Actually, I wanted to ask about her next treatment. The insurance situation has changed, and I want to make sure everything's covered. Oh, that's all taken care of, Nurse Rivera interrupted, her eyes widening slightly. Didn't they tell you? Emma's been moved to the Castellano program. Full coverage, experimental treatments if needed, home nursing care, everything. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. When did this happen? The paperwork came through last week. She frowned at my expression. Is something wrong? It's the best care program in the hospital, reserved for special cases with significant needs. Most families wait months just to be considered. I forced a smile. No, nothing's wrong. It's wonderful news. I just wasn't expecting it so soon. By 5 o'clock, my head was spinning with the implications of everything I'd learned. The Castellano Foundation wasn't just a donor. It wielded enormous influence throughout the hospital, funding cutting-edge research and treatment programs, including the one Emma had mysteriously been enrolled in. Dante Castellano hadn't just found me a job. He'd placed me in the exact position to monitor my daughter's care while simultaneously elevating our financial and social status. The calculated precision of it was as impressive as it was unsettling. As I packed up my desk, preparing to leave for my first day, a text message appeared on my phone from an unknown number. Car waiting downstairs, DC. My pulse quickened. I had arranged to pick Emma up from her playdate, to begin establishing our new routine. Hesitating only briefly, I responded, "Already have plans to collect my daughter." The reply came immediately. "She's been taken care of. We need to talk." Ice flooded my veins. I called Mrs. Patel with shaking fingers, relief washing over me when she confirmed Emma was still there, happily playing with her friend. "Take the car," she advised when I explained the situation. "Emma can stay for dinner. My grandson is picking me up later. We can drop her home." The elevator ride to the ground floor felt like a descent into another world. I had spent the day playing at normalcy, pretending my new position had been earned through conventional channels. Now reality reasserted itself in the form of a sleek black Bentley idling at the curb. Marco held the door open without a word. Inside, Dante Castellano sat exactly as I remembered. Elegant, imposing, radiating quiet authority. Today he wore a charcoal suit with a deep burgundy tie, a platinum watch gleaming at his wrist. His dark eyes assessed me with that same unnerving intensity. "You look well in your new role," he observed, as the car pulled smoothly away from the curb. I ignored the compliment. "You enrolled my daughter in a special treatment program without telling me." "Yes." No apology, no justification, just calm acknowledgement. "Why?" "Because she needs it." He studied me with those penetrating eyes. "Are you displeased with the care she'll receive?" "That's not the point," I said, struggling to articulate my tangled emotions. "You're orchestrating our lives, moving us around like pieces on a chessboard. I don't understand why." "Don't you?" His voice was soft, almost intimate in the hushed interior of the car. "I think you do, Sophia." Heat climbed my neck, settling in my cheeks. If you expect me to," I couldn't finish, the implication hanging heavy between us. A flash of something, anger, disappointment, crossed his features. "If I wanted a mistress, Sophia, there are simpler ways to acquire one." The blunt statement made me flinch. "Then what do you want from me?" Instead of answering, he nodded toward the window. We had driven into an exclusive residential district where gated estates were set back from tree-lined streets. The car slowed, turning into a curved driveway that led to an imposing stone mansion. "Where are we?" I asked, tension coiling in my stomach. "My home," Castellano replied, as Marco opened the car door. I thought a change of scenery might facilitate our conversation. Every instinct warned against following this man into his private domain, yet I found myself moving alongside him up the marble steps, into a soaring entryway where priceless art adorned the walls and a chandelier cast prismatic light across polished floors. A housekeeper materialized, taking Castellano's coat. Two men in dark suits, security obviously, stood at discreet distances, their eyes tracking our movement, as Castellano led me through the house to a terrace overlooking immaculate gardens. The autumn air held a chill, but heat lamps created a bubble of warmth where a table had been set with wine and an array of elegant appetizers. "Please," he gestured toward a chair, which he held for me with old-world courtesy. I sat, hyper-aware of his proximity as he took the seat across from me. "This is unnecessary," I said, gesturing to the elaborate setting. "Perhaps," he conceded, pouring ruby wine into crystal glasses, "but I find comfort facilitates honesty." "Is that what you want from me? Honesty?" His dark eyes locked with mine, among other things. I took a fortifying sip of wine, its rich complexity blooming on my tongue. "Then be honest with me. Who are you, really? What do you do?" A smile touched his lips. "I'm an entrepreneur with diverse business interests. Import, export, real estate, private equity, and the other part?" I pressed. The part that made Antonio look like he might wet himself in that pharmacy? Castellano's smile deepened, a predator's appreciation for worthy prey. I have a certain reputation in this city. My family has operated here for 3 generations. He sipped his wine. Some of our past enterprises existed in gray areas of legality. These days, most of my business is legitimate. Most, I echoed. He inclined his head, neither confirming nor denying. Does that frighten you? Yes, I admitted, but not as much as it should. Something darkened in his gaze, a hunger that sent a shiver down my spine. Your honesty is refreshing, Sophia. Most people would lie or attempt to curry favor. I don't have that luxury, I said simply. I have a daughter who depends on me. I can't afford games or pretense. Emma, he murmured. You haven't asked how she factors into all this. My hands tightened around the wine glass. I assumed she was leverage, a way to ensure my cooperation with whatever this is. Anger flashed across his face, genuine and startling in its intensity. I would never use a child that way, especially not one who is ill. The vehemence in his tone gave me pause. Then why help her? Why help us? Castellano was silent for a long moment, his gaze shifting to the darkening gardens. When he spoke again, his voice carried an undertone I hadn't heard before, something raw and personal. 6 years ago, my sister died of the same blood disorder that afflicts your daughter. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Few do. His expression was distant, lost in memory. Adriana was diagnosed at 7. She fought for 20 years, through treatments, remissions, relapses. Our father spared no expense, used every connection, but medical science could only do so much back then. He turned back to me, his dark eyes intense. When I saw you in that pharmacy, protecting your daughter even in your fear, I recognized something. Then I learned about Emma's condition. He shook his head slightly. Some would call it fate. I prefer to think of it as an opportunity. Opportunity for what? Redemption, perhaps. He smiled faintly. Or simply the chance to ensure another child doesn't suffer as my sister did. The Castellano Foundation was established in Adriana's memory. We fund research, treatment programs, support for families facing these disorders. I struggled to reconcile this unexpected vulnerability with the man whose very presence commanded fear and respect. That's admirable. But it doesn't explain your interest in me specifically, doesn't it? He leaned forward slightly, the movement bringing with it that scent of sandalwood and something darker. A single mother fighting impossible odds for her daughter's survival. A woman who grabbed the arm of one of the most dangerous men in the city without hesitation to protect herself. His voice dropped lower. A woman with fire in her eyes even when afraid. Intelligence wasted on menial work. Beauty undiminished by exhaustion. Heat rushed to my face at the naked appreciation in his gaze. Mr. Castellano. Dante, he corrected. I think we're well past formalities, don't you? Dante, I conceded, the name feeling intimate on my tongue. This is all happening very fast. The job, Emma's treatment program, these revelations. I don't know what you expect from me. He sat back, studying me with those unfathomable dark eyes. For now, simply the chance to know you better, to help Emma receive the care she needs. Perhaps in time more, but that will be your choice, Sophia. Always your choice. The sincerity in his voice was disarming, yet caution kept me guarded. And if I choose to walk away, to decline your help, then the job remains yours. You've already proven yourself capable. Emma's medical care continues. Her enrollment in the program isn't conditional. His expression hardened slightly. But I hope you won't make that choice. I believe we could be significant to each other. The weight of his words settled between us, laden with implication. This wasn't merely about charity or even attraction. Dante Castellano was offering something more complex, a partnership of sorts, the contours of which remained undefined but enticing. A discreet cough announced Marco's presence at the terrace door. "Sir, the call you were expecting." Dante nodded, his expression shifting subtly back to the controlled power I'd first witnessed. "Take Ms. Reed home when she's ready. Ensure her daughter arrives safely as well." To me, he added, "Think about what I've said, Sophia. We'll speak again soon." He rose with fluid grace, bending to brush his lips against my cheek. A gesture so unexpected I froze, the warmth of his breath sending a tremor through me. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts and the lingering sensation of his touch. The drive home passed in a daze, my mind replaying our conversation, searching for hidden meanings and agendas. By the time I arrived at my apartment building, now mysteriously free of the maintenance issues that had plagued it for months, I was no closer to understanding the enigma that was Dante Castellano. Yet, as I climbed the stairs to where Emma waited, one certainty had crystallized amid the confusion. For better or worse, Dante Castellano had entangled himself in our lives with bonds that would not be easily broken. And despite every rational warning bell, some treacherous part of me didn't want them to be. Weeks passed, and autumn deepened into winter. My life settled into a new rhythm, one of unexpected stability and comfort. The job at the hospital proved challenging but fulfilling, allowing me to use skills I'd forgotten I possessed. Emma's health improved steadily under the comprehensive care program, her cheeks filling out, her energy returning in small but significant increments. And through it all, Dante Castellano's presence hovered at the periphery of our existence. Never intrusive, yet impossible to ignore. He didn't push for more meetings, instead establishing a pattern of small, thoughtful gestures that spoke of careful attention rather than overwhelming control. A car would appear on rainy mornings without being called. Theater tickets for a children's show Emma had mentioned wanting to see would arrive at my desk. Once, after I'd mentioned offhandedly to Dr. Chen that Emma had outgrown her winter coat, a package appeared at our apartment containing not just a coat, but a complete winter wardrobe in exactly her size. "Is he your boyfriend?" Emma asked one evening, as she modeled her new boots in front of our small mirror. I nearly choked on my tea. "Who?" "Mr. Dante," she said, with the matter-of-factness of children. "The one who sends the cars and the presents. Mrs. Patel says he must be sweet on you." Heat rushed to my face. "He's a friend. Someone who wants to help us." Emma considered this, her small face serious. "Because of his sister? The one who was sick like me?" I set down my cup, startled. "How do you know about that?" "He told me," she said, climbing onto the couch beside me. "When he came to visit me at school, my blood turned to ice." "He came to your school? When?" "Last week, during recess." She seemed unconcerned by my alarm. "He was with Mr. Marco. They talked to Principal Winters first, and then they came to the playground. Mr. Dante gave me this." She pulled a small silver locket from beneath her sweater, a delicate oval I'd assumed had come from Mrs. Patel. "It has a picture of his sister inside. He said she's watching over me now." I took the locket with trembling fingers, opening it to reveal a tiny photograph of a beautiful young woman with Dante's dark eyes and strong features, her smile radiant, despite the pallor of illness evident in her face. Anger and confusion warred within me. The gesture was undeniably touching, a personal connection between Emma and the sister Dante had lost, yet he had approached my daughter without my knowledge or permission, crossing a boundary I hadn't even known needed establishing. That night, after Emma was asleep, I called the number on the card Dante had given me. He answered on the second ring, his deep voice sending an involuntary shiver through me. "Sophia, I've been wondering when you would call." "You went to Emma's school," I said without preamble. "You spoke to my daughter without telling me." A pause. "Yes." "Why?" "I wanted to meet her properly, to see for myself how she was responding to the treatments." His tone was unapologetic. "The school security protocols were inadequate. I've had them upgraded." Of course he had. The man who rearranged lives and institutions with a word or a gesture wouldn't hesitate to overhaul an entire school's security system. "That's not the point," I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "Emma is my daughter, mine. You don't make decisions about her. You don't give her gifts. You don't visit her without my permission." "You're right." His admission surprised me. It was presumptuous. "I apologize." The simple acknowledgement deflated some of my anger. "Thank you," I said, less heatedly. "I appreciate everything you've done for us, Dante. But there have to be boundaries." "Understood." A brief silence stretched between us. Then, have dinner with me tomorrow night. A proper dinner, not an interrogation on my terrace. The sudden change of subject caught me off guard. I don't have anyone to watch Emma. Mrs. Patel has already agreed. 7 o'clock. I could hear the smile in his voice. Unless that crosses a boundary as well. Despite myself, I laughed. You're impossible. So I've been told. His voice softened. Say yes, Sophia, and God help me, I did. The restaurant was the kind I'd only seen in movies, hidden behind an unmarked door in the city's historic district, its interior a study in old-world elegance with private alcoves separated by dark wooden screens and illuminated by the soft glow of candles. Dante was waiting when I arrived, rising as I approached our secluded table. You look beautiful, he said, his dark eyes appreciative as they took in the simple black dress I'd splurged on. My first new piece of clothing in years. Thank you, I replied, suddenly shy under his intense gaze. This place is incredible. It's been in the same family for 4 generations. He held my chair with that same old-world courtesy I was beginning to expect. The owner's grandfather and mine came from the same village in Sicily. The evening unfolded with surprising ease, our conversation flowing naturally from topic to topic, my adjustment to the hospital position, Emma's progress, books we'd both read, music we enjoyed. Dante proved to be knowledgeable on virtually every subject, though he listened more than he spoke, his attention making me feel as though my every word held value. It was only when dessert arrived that he broached more personal territory. You've been cautious with me, he observed, watching me over the rim of his wineglass, accepting help for Emma, but keeping your distance otherwise. I traced the edge of my plate with a fingertip. Can you blame me? You're intimidating. A smile touched his lips. Am I? You know you are. I met his gaze directly. Everything about you, your power, your wealth, the way you simply rearrange reality to suit your preferences. It's overwhelming. Yet, here you are? Yes, I admitted softly. Here I am. Something shifted in his expression, the careful control giving way to something rawer, more vulnerable. I haven't felt this way about anyone since before Adriana died, he said, his voice low. Her illness consumed our family for so many years. After she was gone, I buried myself in business, in expanding our interests, in building the foundation. I didn't allow space for personal entanglements. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine in a touch that sent warmth cascading through me. Until you grabbed my arm in that pharmacy. I swallowed, my heart pounding against my ribs. Dante, I'm not asking for declarations, Sophia. Only honesty. Are your reservations solely about my methods? Or is there something more? The question hung between us, weighted with possibility. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. I'm afraid, I admitted. Not of you, exactly, but of what you represent. Your world is so far removed from mine. The power you wield, the violence implicit in your position. It terrifies me. His expression didn't change, but I sensed his withdrawal, subtle as a change in barometric pressure. I see. No, you don't, I said, turning my hand to capture his before he could retreat fully. I'm afraid because despite all that, despite every rational warning, I can't stop thinking about you. About this connection between us that makes no logical sense but feels... I struggled for words. Inevitable. The naked emotion that flashed across his face in that moment, hope mingled with a fierce possession, stole my breath. His fingers tightened around mine. Come home with me tonight, he said, his voice rough with restraint. The invitation hung in the air between us, charged with promise and danger in equal measure. One choice, I knew instinctively, that would alter the course of my life irrevocably. Yes, I whispered, crossing the final boundary between my old life and whatever awaited in Dante Castellano's world. The drive to his estate passed in charged silence, the space between us in the back seat of the Bentley, crackling with unspoken desire. Dante didn't touch me, not until we were alone in the grand foyer of his home, the door closing behind us with a definitive click. Then he was before me, one hand cupping my face with exquisite gentleness, his dark eyes searching mine for any sign of hesitation or doubt. Finding none, He lowered his mouth to mine in a kiss that began with tender exploration and quickly blazed into something more consuming. I surrendered to it, to him, my arms winding around his neck as his hands spanned my waist, drawing me against the solid warmth of his body. In that moment, all my careful rationalizations dissolved, leaving only the undeniable truth that had been building since our first encounter. Whatever Dante Castellano might be to the rest of the world, feared boss, powerful benefactor, ruthless businessman, to me, he had become essential. Dawn found me in Dante's bed, the Egyptian cotton sheets cool against my skin, his arm a heavy weight across my waist. I watched him sleep, studying the face that relaxed in slumber, losing some of its severity. The scar along his eyebrow seemed more pronounced in the pale morning light, a reminder of the violence that had shaped him, the world he inhabited that remained largely invisible to me. As if sensing my scrutiny, his eyes opened, dark and immediately alert. He studied me with an intensity that made heat bloom across my skin. "No regrets?" he asked, his voice rough with sleep. I shook my head. "No regrets." His hand traced the curve of my hip, a possessive gesture that sent shivers through me. "Stay," he murmured. "It's Saturday. Emma is with Mrs. Patel until noon." I settled back against him, allowing myself this moment of perfect contentment, pushing away thoughts of what would come next, of how this fragile thing between us could possibly survive the realities of our disparate lives. Later, over coffee in his sunlit kitchen, an unexpectedly warm space in the otherwise formal mansion, reality began to reassert itself. "I should get home," I said reluctantly. "Emma will be waiting." Dante nodded, his expression thoughtful as he studied me over the rim of his cup. "Bring her here tomorrow," he suggested. "For lunch. The gardens are still pleasant, and there's an indoor pool she might enjoy." The casual invitation caught me off guard. This merging of our separate worlds I'd been so careful to keep distinct. "Are you sure that's wise? Emma is—" I hesitated. "She gets attached easily. I don't want her to be confused about your role in our lives." "And what is my role in your lives, Sophia?" His tone was gentle, but the question was pointed. I met his gaze directly. "I'm not sure yet. Last night was—" I flushed, remembering the intensity of our connection, the way he had claimed me with a passion that bordered on reverence. "But our situation is complicated." "It's only as complicated as we make it." He set down his cup, reaching across the marble countertop to take my hand. "I want you in my life, Sophia. Both of you, not as charity cases, not as obligations, as family." The word hung between us, weighted with meaning beyond its simple syllables. "Family," I repeated softly. "Is that what we are to you?" Something vulnerable flickered across his features. "You could be. If you'll let me, I'd like to build something with you. Something real. Something lasting." My heart pounded against my ribs. This wasn't a casual affair or a convenient arrangement he was proposing. This was something far more significant and terrifying. "There's so much I still don't know about you," I said. "About your business, your past, the things that make people fear you." His expression grew solemn. "There are aspects of my life that aren't conventionally acceptable," he acknowledged. "The Castellano family has roots in organized crime. That's not a secret. My father operated almost entirely outside the law. I've spent the past decade legitimizing our enterprises, though yes, some connections remain that exist in gray areas." He held my gaze steadily. "I won't insult you by claiming my hands are entirely clean, Sophia. But I can promise you this. Everything I do now is to protect what's mine, to secure our future. There's no violence without purpose, no cruelty for its own sake. And if I asked you to leave it all behind—" The question was unfair, I knew. Asking a man like Dante to abandon the empire he'd inherited and reshaped was like asking him to cut off a limb. To his credit, he considered it seriously, his expression grave. "Parts of it, yes. The foundation, the legitimate businesses, those could continue under my oversight. The rest," he shook his head slightly. "It's not so simple. There are obligations, loyalties, debts that can't be abandoned without consequences. The best I could offer is distance, insulation between that world and our family life." Our family life. The phrase echoed in my mind, as tantalizing as it was impossible to imagine. Yet wasn't that what had been forming, piece by piece, since the moment in the pharmacy? Dante inserting himself into the fabric of our existence, becoming essential not just to Emma's care, but to my own sense of possibility. I need time, I said finally, to think about what this means, for me and for Emma. He nodded, though I could see the tension in his jaw. Of course. Take the day. Consider what I've said. His fingers tightened briefly around mine. But know that I don't make such offers lightly, Sophia. What I feel for you, for both of you, it's not temporary or conditional. Marco drove me home in silence, the city passing in a blur of winter sunlight and shadow. My mind churned with the implications of Dante's proposal. Could I truly join my life with his, knowing the darkness that edged his world? Could I allow Emma to form attachments to a man whose enemies might one day become threats to her safety? Yet the alternative, walking away from what we had begun to build, from the security and care he offered, from the undeniable connection between us, seemed equally impossible. Emma was watching cartoons when I arrived, her small face lighting up at my entrance. Mommy, Mrs. Patel made pancakes with chocolate chips. I gathered her into my arms, breathing in her familiar scent, feeling the newfound strength in her thin body, strength that Dante's intervention had made possible. That sounds delicious, baby. Did you save me any? Later, after Mrs. Patel had left with a knowing smile and a gentle squeeze of my hand, Emma and I sat on our small balcony, bundled in blankets against the winter chill, watching birds gather at the feeder Dante had installed weeks earlier. Mr. Dante asked me if I'd like to have him for a daddy, Emma said suddenly, her eyes on a cardinal that had landed on the railing. I froze, my mug of tea halfway to my lips. He what? When did he say this? At school, she replied, her tone matter-of-fact. He said he cares about you a lot, and about me too, and that maybe someday we could be a family, but only if I thought that would be okay. A complex emotion washed through me, anger at Dante for approaching such a subject with Emma without consulting me, yet a reluctant admiration for his recognition of her agency, his understanding that her opinion mattered. What did you tell him? I asked carefully, setting down my mug. Emma tilted her head, considering. I said I already had a daddy, but he went away and doesn't call or send birthday cards, and that you're sad sometimes, but you smile more since Mr. Dante started sending the cars. She looked up at me with those perceptive eyes that seemed to see straight through adult pretenses. I told him I wouldn't mind if he wanted to be my new daddy, as long as he promises not to go away like my real one did. Tears pricked at my eyes. Oh, Emma. He said he would never go away, she continued solemnly. He promised. And he said his sister would be mad at him in heaven if he broke a promise to me. Because I'm special like she was. I pulled her onto my lap, cradling her close as my heart twisted with conflicting emotions. Dante had manipulated situations, rearranged our lives, approached my daughter without permission, actions that should have sent me running in the opposite direction. Yet, beneath the high-handedness was a core of genuine care, a recognition of what Emma and I needed most: security, stability, the certainty that we wouldn't be abandoned again. Do you like him, Mommy? Emma asked, looking up at me. Because I think he likes you a lot. His eyes get all soft when he talks about you, like in the movies. A laugh escaped me, half sob, half genuine amusement at her observation. Yes, baby, I like him a lot too. My phone chimed with an incoming message. Dante, have you decided? Simple, direct, without pressure, yet I could feel the weight of expectation behind the words. This was a turning point, a moment of choice that would define what came next for all of us. I took a deep breath, looking at Emma, healthier, happier than she'd been in months, and then out at the city beyond our small balcony, where Dante waited for an answer that would join our lives or separate them irrevocably. Yes, I typed, my fingers steady despite the enormity of the decision. But we do this slowly, on terms we set together. Emma comes first, always. His response was immediate, always. Both of you come first now. Everything I have, everything I am, it's yours. Come home, Sophia. Both of you. Home. Such a simple word for such a complex concept. Home had been an abstract idea for too long, a series of temporary spaces, never quite secure, never entirely ours. The prospect of a true home, with someone who would fight to protect it, to protect us, the yearning was almost overwhelming. "Emma," I said, setting my phone aside, "how would you feel about having lunch with Mr. Dante tomorrow, at his house? It has a swimming pool." Her eyes widened with excitement. "Really? Can I bring my new swimming suit? The one with the sparkles?" "Absolutely," I promised, my decision solidifying with her joy. "And maybe we can talk about spending more time there, about making some changes in our lives." She nodded solemnly, wisdom beyond her years in her gaze. "Because Mr. Dante is going to be our family now? Maybe," I said softly. "If that's what we all want, we'll figure it out together, okay?" "Okay," she agreed, snuggling against me. "I think it will be good, Mommy. Mr. Dante makes the scared feeling go away. For both of us." Out of the mouths of babes, in her simple observation lay the truth I'd been circling, beyond the luxury, the power, the complex moral questions of Dante's world. What he offered us was the most basic human need: safety, certainty, belonging. I texted him again. "We'll be there tomorrow at noon. And Dante? Thank you for not giving up on us." His response was immediate and uncharacteristically unguarded. "Never. From the moment you grabbed my arm, you became mine to protect. Both of you. Always." I closed my eyes, Emma warm against me, the winter sun on my face, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe in a future unburdened by constant fear. Whatever complications lay ahead, and there would be many in joining my life with Dante Castellanos, we would face them together, a family forged not by blood, but by choice, by need, by love that had found us in the most unexpected of circumstances. Sometimes salvation comes disguised as danger. Sometimes the hand you grab in desperate fear becomes the one you hold for a lifetime. And sometimes the most unlikely beginnings lead to the most perfect endings.